The CEO didn't lower his voice. He wanted everyone to hear it. "That's negligent," he said, pointing at me across the table. "Publicly take responsibility, maybe I'll let you stay." The room froze. Not the kind of silence that waits for clarification, the kind that already decided who was at fault. "My name is Marlene Kessler." I was standing at the front of the room, hands still resting on the podium. The teleprompter behind me stuck on the same unfinished sentence it had been showing for the past 20 seconds. No scrolling, no cues, just my name and a failure they were eager to pin on it. I said, "The system flagged an error yesterday." I sent the warning. The CEO didn't look at the screen. He didn't look at his notes. He looked at the people sitting around the table. "This isn't a technical discussion," he said. "This is about accountability." I turned slightly. Evan, his son, the project lead, stood beside me. He had approved the last-minute changes. He had waved off the delay. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight, as if silence were a strategy. "Say it," the CEO continued. "Tell them it was your mistake." Someone at the far end of the table cleared their throat. No one else spoke. I asked, "If I do, does this end here?" The CEO smiled, slow and confident. "That depends on how cooperative you decide to be." Evan shifted his weight, still didn't say my name. I nodded once. "Okay." The word landed clean, final. The CEO relaxed back into his chair. Evan exhaled. Pens started moving again, as if the moment had already been filed away under resolved. They thought I had accepted blame. What I had actually done was agree to a condition they didn't understand yet. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revengeaita. While the characters and events are imagined, the power dynamics, coercion, and consequences reflect real situations where silence is mistaken for submission. When the meeting ended, the CEO called after me, "Marlene, stay." Evan walked past without looking back. The door closed. The CEO said, "This didn't need to turn into a spectacle." I met his eyes. "You made it one." He frowned, then waved it off. "We'll discuss your role tomorrow." I nodded again, picked up my folder, and walked out already aware that by morning, there wouldn't be a role left to discuss. The truth was, the failure didn't start in that room. It started the day before, when I tried to stop it. I found Evan in one of the smaller conference rooms, his laptop open, slides pulled up, already rehearsing. I didn't sit down. "The teleprompter build isn't ready," I said. "The last update was rushed. If we push this live tomorrow, it could freeze." He didn't look up. "It won't." "I'm not guessing," I said. The sync was forced. The fallback script didn't compile. Evan sighed, finally meeting my eyes. "Marlene, investors don't need to see every moving part. They need a clean presentation. Clean doesn't mean stable. It means simple." He shot back. "We're not delaying the rollout because you're uncomfortable." I felt the shift then. Not disagreement. Dismissal. "I'm asking for 1 day," I said. "Just one." He closed his laptop with a soft click. The CEO already approved it. "We're moving forward," I asked. "Did you tell him about the risk Evan stood?" "I told him you were being cautious, like always." The word stuck. Cautious. As if I hadn't been the one fixing problems after everyone else rushed ahead. I sent the warning email anyway. I documented everything. I copied compliance. Just in case. None of it mattered. Standing in that presentation room the next day, with the teleprompter frozen and the CEO pointing at me, I understood exactly why Evan stayed silent. This wasn't confusion. It was design. After the meeting, I caught up to him in the hallway. "You could have said something," I said quietly. He didn't slow down. "It was your system. You approved the change." He stopped, finally turning. "And you were responsible for making sure it worked. So that's it." I said, "You let me take it." Evan's voice dropped. "You've been here a long time. Marlene, people expect stability from you, and mistakes from you," I asked. His jaw tightened. "This isn't personal." It was the first lie he told me directly. I watched him walk away, already knowing the damage was done. The blame hadn't landed on me by accident. It had been waiting, neatly assigned. Long before anything actually went wrong, the CEO called me into his office less than an hour after the presentation ended. He didn't offer a seat. He didn't raise his voice either, which was how I knew this conversation mattered more than the one in the conference room. "Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be," he said. folding his hands on the desk. What happened today shook people, investors, staff. We need to restore confidence, I said, by asking me to apologize. He nodded, as if we were agreeing on a technical detail, by showing unity. Unity, I repeated. Yes, he said. When someone makes a mistake, the team stands together. I looked at him. You didn't say mistake. You said negligent. His mouth tightened briefly. Words get chosen in the moment, not that one. I said. That one was deliberate. He leaned back. You've been here a long time. Marlene? You know how this works. I know how accountability works, I said. And I know who approved the changes. That's not relevant anymore. I felt the pressure settle then, heavy and exact. This wasn't about fixing anything. It was about alignment. He continued. Evan is leading this initiative. He represents where the company's going. Fresh ideas, momentum. We can't undermine that over a presentation glitch. A glitch you were warned about. He waved his hand. You're focusing on the wrong part, I asked. Which part should I focus on? He met my eyes. The part where you decide whether you're still a team player. There it was. Clean, unvarnished. I took a breath. If I don't apologize publicly, am I removed from the project? He didn't hesitate. Yes. And my role after that? We'll evaluate, he said. But I won't have someone on my leadership team who can't support our direction. I nodded slowly. So loyalty, in this case, means silence. It means trust, he corrected. No, I said. It means standing still while someone else steps forward. His expression hardened. Be careful, I said. That's why I'm asking plainly. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. Think about what you're risking. I gathered my folder. When I walked out, I understood the choice clearly. Staying meant agreeing to disappear in place. Leaving meant losing everything I'd built. I didn't feel brave. I felt cornered. But I also knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to apologize for something I didn't do. What if the contract everyone forgot about remembered you? I didn't pour a drink. I didn't pace. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop the way I always did when something needed to be verified. Not felt. The file was still there. Original employment agreement, signed years ago. Back when the company still called itself a startup and not a brand. Back when titles were vague and responsibilities were real. I scrolled slowly. No urgency. No hope either. Clause headings passed by like old acquaintances. Scope, termination, confidentiality. Then I saw it. Derivative rights advisory role, protections. I stopped scrolling. The language was plain. Almost casual. In the event of removal from a project without due process or documented cause, the originating architect retained ownership and control of derivative systems developed independently of executive oversight. I read it again, then a third time. My phone buzzed. Lena, compliance counsel I had worked with years earlier. Did you see the replay, she asked. I did. I said, a pause. That was aggressive. They wanted an apology. I said, public. Another pause. Longer this time. Did you give it? I said, okay. Her breath caught. Marlene, okay means something different to them than it does to you. I know. You should be careful, she said. They'll try to push you out quietly. I know, I said again. I turned the screen toward myself, scrolling back to the signature page. My name, my date, their signature below it, untouched by amendments. Lena spoke softly. Do you remember why you insisted on that clause? Yes, I said, because I didn't trust verbal assurances. Silence settled between us. If they remove you, she said carefully, they lose more than a seat in a meeting. I'm aware. You're not thinking of confronting them, are you? No, I said. I'm done explaining. I closed the laptop. The decision wasn't dramatic. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like clarity. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't defend myself. I wouldn't offer context to people who had already decided the outcome. If they wanted me gone, I would let the contract answer for me. I stood, cleared the table, and set my badge beside the door. By morning, everything would be very simple. How do you know when a decision is final? I found out the moment my badge stopped working. I held it to the scanner once, then again. The light stayed red. Try it one more time, the security guard said, not unkindly. He didn't know my name. He didn't need to. It won't, I said. He glanced at his screen. Access revoked at 7:12 this morning. I nodded and stepped aside. Thank you, upstairs. My desk looked like it belonged to someone who had never existed. No notebook, no framed photo, no reference binders I'd built over years. Even the chair was pushed in neatly, like they were proud of how quickly they erased me. My manager, Paul, hovered near the copy room. He saw me and froze. They told us not to interrupt you, he said quietly. I'm not busy, I replied. He swallowed. HR left something for you. The envelope was centered on the desk. Inside was a resignation template. Pre-filled. My name, my title, today's date. Paul cleared his throat. They said it would be easier if you signed. Easier for who I asked. He didn't answer. I sat down, picked up the pen, and signed my name exactly the way I always did. No shaking, no pause. Paul exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all morning. I'm sorry, I know, I said. My phone buzzed. A message from Evan. This didn't have to go this way. I typed back one sentence. You chose the way. I stood, slid the signed paper back into the envelope, and walked toward the elevator. Paul followed me a few steps. Is there anything you need? Yes, I said. Make sure they log the time correctly. He frowned. The time of my departure. I said, it matters. The elevator doors closed before he could ask why. In the lobby, I handed my badge to security. Good luck, the guard said. I nodded and stepped outside without looking back. There was no farewell, no final speech, no one chasing me down the hallway. What surprised me most wasn't how quiet it was. It was how complete it felt. Why would a company lawyer panic after someone resigns? I was halfway to the exit when I heard footsteps behind me fast, uneven. Marlene. I turned to see Robert Hale, the company's senior counsel, coming down the hallway without his jacket, phone still in his hand. He didn't slow down when he reached me. Where are you going? He asked. I resigned. I said, HR has the paperwork. He blinked once. Who approved your removal from the project? I didn't realize it required a committee vote. I said. The CEO made it clear. Robert's jaw tightened. Did he remove you directly? Yes. In writing in front of witnesses, I said. And then this morning. He didn't say anything else. He turned sharply and walked back toward the executive wing. I followed not because he asked, but because I wanted to hear what came next. The CEO's door was already open. Robert didn't knock. Who approved Marlene Kessler's removal from the project? He asked, loud enough that the assistants outside went still. The CEO looked up from his desk, annoyed. I did. She refused to cooperate. Robert took a step closer. You removed her without a performance review. She admitted fault. She said one word. Robert said, that is not an admission. The CEO stood. This is my call. Robert's voice dropped. Then it's your liability. Silence spread through the room. Evan was there too, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. What are you talking about? The CEO said. Robert turned slightly, just enough to include Evan in the conversation. Marlene was not just staff. She was the originating architect on the presentation pipeline. Her contract includes derivative ownership protections. That's ancient history, the CEO said. It was renewed, Robert replied, 3 times. The last one during the compliance restructure. Evan uncrossed his arms. You're saying what exactly? I'm saying, Robert continued, that the moment you removed her without due process, the company lost authorization to use the system she built. The CEO laughed once. You're overreacting. Robert didn't smile. I'm reacting exactly enough. He turned to me. When did you sign the resignation? I told him the time. He nodded, as if confirming a calculation. Then as of that minute, he said, looking back at the CEO, you no longer have access. No one spoke after that. I adjusted the strap of my bag and stepped back toward the door. Robert didn't stop me. He didn't need to. What happens when something doesn't break but simply stops responding? I wasn't in the building when the investor session started. I didn't need to be. My phone told the story before anyone said my name. Evan called first. I let it ring. Then a message came through from Paul, my former manager. Are you watching this? I replied with one word, no. Inside the boardroom, Evan stood at the front, remote in hand. He clicked once. Nothing happened. He clicked again. Just a second, he said, forcing a smile. Looks like a refresh issue. One of the partners leaned forward. We were told this system was proprietary. It is, Evan said quickly. We're just experiencing a delay. From what Robert later told me, the screen didn't freeze, it went blank. A simple notice appeared where the dashboard should have been. Authorization required. Evan tried logging in again. Different credentials, same result. This worked yesterday, he said, louder now. A woman from the investment group spoke up. Is this a technical failure? Robert answered before Evan could. No. The room shifted. What do you mean, no? Another partner asked. It's a licensing issue, Robert said. Not a malfunction. Evan turned to him. Why wasn't I informed of this? Robert didn't lower his voice. Because it wasn't an issue until this morning. And now the CEO asked. Now, Robert said. We are using software we are no longer authorized to access. Silence followed, not confusion. Calculation. One of the partners closed his folder, so the data isn't unavailable. It's restricted. That's correct, Robert said. By whom? The partner asked. Robert hesitated, then answered plainly. By the original architect. Evan's face drained of color. That's not possible. Robert looked at him. It's already happening. The meeting ended early. No arguments, no raised voices. Just people standing, shaking hands stiffly, and leaving without scheduling the next step. An hour later, I received a single email from the CEO's office. We need to talk. I read it once, then archived it. Nothing had crashed. Nothing had been sabotaged. The system was doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was responding to authority. What if the answer was hidden in plain sight for years? I wasn't invited to the emergency executive meeting. But Robert called me before it started. They're all here, he said. Board members, finance, Evan. Your name is already on the screen. I'm not joining. I said, I didn't ask you to. He replied, I just wanted you to know what's about to happen. An hour later, he called again. The CEO opened by calling this a misunderstanding, Robert said. That lasted about 3 minutes. I pictured the room easily enough. He asked why the system locked him out. Robert continued. I told him it didn't lock him out. It recognized the contract. What did Evan say? I asked. He said the software belonged to the company, Robert replied. So I asked him to read the signature page. There was a pause on the line. I put the document on the screen. Robert went on. Your name was already there. Dated, verified. Then I highlighted the clause. He read it out loud to me, even though I already knew it by heart. In the event of removal without documented cause or due process, all derivative systems revert to the originating architect. Usage rights are immediately suspended. And then I asked. Silence, he said. Not confusion. Recognition. The CEO tried to argue. Robert added. He said intent mattered. And you said I said contracts don't care about intent. They care about signatures. Another pause. He asked when the suspension took effect. Robert said, and I told him the exact minute you signed the resignation. I leaned back in my chair. Evan asked if this could be reversed. Robert said, I told him yes. If you agreed, I didn't. I said, I know. The CEO finally asked what okay meant. Robert said quietly. I told him it meant acceptance of his terms. Did he understand then? I asked. Yes. Robert said. He just didn't like what his terms actually were. The call ended there. I didn't feel victorious. I felt settled. They had read the clause. They had seen the signature. They had understood too late. That authority doesn't come from titles or volume. It comes from agreements you bothered to honor. Who pays the price when favoritism replaces competence? The first call came from human resources, not the CEO. We wanted to inform you, the woman said, a voice careful, that the board has placed the chief executive on administrative leave pending a formal investigation. I said nothing. There were concerns raised about governance, she continued. Process failures. Was I named? I asked. A pause. Yes. And the board requested all communications related to your removal, she said. Including recordings. I don't have any. I said, they do. Another pause. We also wanted to ask if you'd be open to discussing terms. I'm not, I said. The next call came from Evan. I almost didn't answer. Almost. This went too far, he said, skipping any pretense. You knew what would happen. I knew what I agreed to. I said, you knew what you approved. They're blaming me, he said. They say I bypassed review. You did. They're shelving the project, he snapped. Indefinitely. That's a decision, I said, not a punishment. He exhaled sharply. You could fix this. I said, and you won't? I didn't break it. I said. I won't pretend I did. He lowered his voice. They're letting me go. I didn't respond. Marlene, he said, quieter now. This wasn't supposed to end like this. It didn't end, I said. It concluded. He hung up without saying goodbye. By the end of the week, the announcements came quietly. No press release, no explanations. The project was paused, budgets reallocated, leadership realigned. Evan's name disappeared from internal directories overnight. I received 3 separate emails offering to reopen negotiations. Each one referenced urgency. Each one avoided responsibility. I declined them all. On Friday evening, Robert sent a final message. The board understands your position. They won't pursue further contact. I replied once, thank you. Walking away didn't feel like victory. It felt like accuracy. They made their choices. They assigned their blame. They protected who they wanted to protect until the consequences demanded payment. I didn't collect anything from them. I simply refused to carry what was never mine to begin with. Accountability finally arrived the way it always does, quietly, and too late to be negotiated. I wrote the email once and didn't revise it. I accepted responsibility. The rest followed your decision. I addressed it to the board, copied legal, and left the CEO off entirely. Not out of spite, out of accuracy. He had already made himself irrelevant. Robert called me an hour later. They asked if you'd consider returning on a consulting basis. I won't, I said. They're restructuring, he added, splitting oversight, external audits. No more single owner approvals. I hope it helps. I said, it will, he replied. Just not the way they planned. I never went back to the building. I didn't retrieve anything I left behind. What mattered had already come with me. Over the next weeks, I heard fragments leadership shuffled. The project dissolved into smaller pieces. Timelines reset by quarters instead of days. People stopped using my name as a problem and started using it as a reference point. Evan tried once more. A short message, no subject line. I didn't know it would cost this much. I didn't answer. Some realizations don't need witnesses. The board sent a final note through council, confirming no further contact. It read like a conclusion written by people who had finally learned to read carefully. I closed my laptop and sat with the stillness. Not relief, not triumph. Just the absence of pressure where it had lived for years. There's a difference between accountability and obedience. Obedience asks you to absorb blame so others can advance. Accountability asks you to honor the truth, even when it costs you access, comfort, or approval. When you build something with care, protect it with clarity, read what you sign, mean what you say, and understand that silence is not surrender when it's chosen. It's consent to consequences on your terms. I had already taken responsibility. Everything else simply followed.